At times it feels like your kids are completely out of control. Today, what to do when your child is having tantrums, being disruptive, aggressive, saying no, non-cooperative, not participating, and all of those hard things. It's another tricky question. On the Happy Families podcast, so glad to have you along. Real parenting solutions every day on Australia's most downloaded parenting podcast. We are Justin and Kylie Coulson. Every Tuesday, we answer your tricky questions. Family stuff, behaviour stuff, relationships, wellbeing screens, discipline. It doesn't matter what it is. You could literally ask us anything. We'll have a chat about it on the pod. All you need to do is send us a voice note to podcasts@happyfamilies.com.au or visit happyfamilies.com.au with your tricky question. There's a super simple system there where you scroll down to the podcast part on page, click the record button and start talking. Just like Anna, who asked us this.
I'm having trouble with my daughter. She's 11, but she's in full puberty and teenager here. She's constantly upset, lying, screaming, not listening. Every morning, every day is a battle. I'm just struggling so much to deal with everything, and I don't know anymore what to do.
Okay, Kylie, big question. You can hear the sadness in Anna's voice. You can hear I don't know if desperation's the right word.
I think it's just a resolve that this is what life's become and she doesn't see an out.
The exhaustion, yeah, it's just so hard. There could be so many different things that are promoting and creating these challenges. And so in the limited time that we've got, and because there's not a lot of information, let's just summarise what's going on. An 11-year-old girl, lying, screaming, not listening, creating challenges on the daily. Every morning, every day is a battle, and we've got a mum who's really struggling. So we don't know if there are big sisters or brothers, little sisters or brothers. All we know is we've got this child who's struggling. Don't know if dad's in the picture either. So there's a handful of things that we need to talk about. The first is just challenging behaviour. Children behave in challenging ways, usually because they have needs that aren't being met. And sometimes it's physiological, like basic safety needs and that kind of thing. Other times it's psychological needs. And on this podcast, we talk all the time about our children's 3 basic psychological needs. When I hear that there's an 11-year-old experiencing this level of distress, this level of dysfunction, this level of deviation, those 3 Ds that indicate that there are definite challenges, I'm worried here about things like depression and anxiety. Although, again, we've got limited information, even ADHD, ODD, it could be any number of different things if we're looking for a diagnosis. I'm not the kind of person who rushes for diagnoses, but these things are indicative of dysfunction where somebody might step in there. Behaviourally, I'm interested in exploring what's going on, explaining what the rules are, and then empowering my child to come up with some ways that we can navigate these challenging times. So if mornings are tough, I want to sit down with my child and say, we're having some really tough mornings. What's actually going on for you? Is it that things are terrible at school and relationships are horrible, or your child feels incompetent at school? Maybe they're being bullied. All of those kinds of things mean that mornings are going to be horrible, not because there's a problem at home, but what's happening at home builds into what the rest of the day has to be, and they're nervous about the rest of the day.
There's so much going on for an 11-year-old girl. Yeah. So much going on.
All
her
these changes.
Hormones are starting to just ramp up, and she can't make sense of it, let alone make sense of the world outside her. So she's got all of this internal turmoil, and clearly there is some outside turmoil wherever that's coming from.
Yeah.
And so our job as parents is literally about exploring that. And sometimes because of the lack of connection that exists because of the challenging behaviour, it's really hard to make that initial connection.
And let's just tap into that word. This is the key thing that I wanted to get to, and that is that when you've got a child who is not responding to you, when you've got a child who is arguing, fighting, blowing up, your relationship becomes correction and direction, and there's a lack of connection. Definition of connection that I emphasise over and over and over again is feeling seen, heard and valued. And I would guarantee, no matter how much Anna is trying, I guarantee that from this 11-year-old's perspective, she's just saying, I don't feel seen, heard and valued.
And it's a perspective thing. Mum could be doing so many amazing things, but her daughter doesn't perceive the connection that's being offered.
And that will usually be because, with the very best of intentions, we as parents are stepping in with control. We're stepping in with correction and direction, command and control. There are these two other basic psychological needs, right? It's not just relatedness, it's also feeling competent. So if I'm stepping in with command and control, correction and direction, kids don't feel competent because I'm telling them that they're doing it wrong. And I'm also stepping in and taking control. I'm taking their autonomy away, and they don't feel like they have a voice. They don't feel like they have any sense of being in the driver's seat of their own lives.
But they also don't have a sense that you actually understand what they're going through.
Yeah, you don't get me.
Yeah, totally. And so before we can even have these conversations, when we've got a child that's that distressed, sometimes it's actually about taking away the agenda, not even having the conversation, and going and finding some space, some time to just be together. If there's something that she loves doing, roller skating or riding a bike or going to the beach or whatever, just creating the time and the space to distance yourself from all the drama that's existing and connect.
Even hearing you say that, though, something that jumps into my mind here is just the value of getting away for the weekend, going camping, getting away from everything. We don't do a great job of this. We're so busy. We're so hurried. Love is spelled Time to a child, but what does hurry spell? And when we're correcting, directing, taking away agency, taking away a sense of control in their lives because we're taking control ourselves, because we're so ticked off because they're upsetting us and nothing's working out, this is really challenging to hear. But as parents, we've literally got to do the opposite of what we want to do in these situations.
That's right.
If you want to speed it up, you've got to slow it down. You want to get in control, you've got to step back and give them voice. These things are really, really hard. Now, after the break, there are two other things that we've really got to talk about that could definitely move the needle. Okay, so an 11-year-old girl who's having a really big challenge. My central thesis here, my main hypothesis, is that basic psychological needs are being stomped on by well-intentioned but frustrated, harried, exhausted and over parents who are unfortunately struggling to help kids feel connected, help kids feel like they have a sense of control, and help kids feel like they're competent at anything.
And almost certainly struggling to manage their own emotions around the experience.
Right, that's it. I mean, we sit here and do these podcasts and we talk about how as parents we just need to help the kids with A, B, C and D. But sometimes we're talking to parents who are dealing with their own stuff, right?
Yeah.
Big baggage, diagnosis of their own anxiety, depression, ADHD, adult challenges, financial issues, all that sort of stuff. And parents just going, I can't do it. Like, I don't know how to do it. So that brings me to the second thing that I wanted to emphasize. When I hear this and I hear Anna's voice and I hear that tiredness, that weariness, that I don't know, I just don't know anymore, that hopelessness in Anna's voice, what I'm really curious about is what are we doing as parents? What are we doing as parents that we're not aware of or that we're doing with good intentions, but it's actually undermining the very thing that we're trying to do? I've just started listening to a pod that I've heard about a lot of times. There's a guy called Billy Garvey, and he's a pediatric neurodevelopmental psychologist. And I'm listening to the conversations he's having, very much like the conversations we have. It's almost like we're the same podcast, but he's got a more medical focus where I've got a more psychological focus. But as I'm listening to him talk to his co-host, Nick, I'm hearing this dad, Nick, who's saying, yeah, I did this. And Billy's like, yeah, it's wrong. Like, you're doing it wrong. You've got the best intentions and it makes sense. Like, logically, it makes sense that you're doing it, but how's this perceived for your child? And as I'm listening to Anna and I'm thinking about what's going on, I can't help. I don't want to shame parents. I don't want to say you're doing it wrong. But what I'm actually saying is you're probably doing it wrong, because most of us are when our children are having these kinds of challenges. We're stepping in with the best of intentions, but we're undermining the things that they need the most, thinking that we're fixing it. And so, Anna, I'm actually going to suggest that, not that I'm trying to flog a book. I make $3 on a book, right? Like the publisher takes all the money, but get a copy of my book, Misconnection. It'll show you how to do it right. It'll show you how to step into need support, and I think it'll make a difference. There's one last thing to wrap up with. Lately, I've been doing a lot of listening, a lot of reading, a lot of learning around how so much of the psychological drama that we and our children experience in our lives has to do with nothing psychological at all. It has to do with lifestyle factors like what we're eating and how much we're sleeping, how much we're moving our body, what our friendships are like, and how much nature we're getting.
And I just wonder, she clearly hasn't shared it with us, but I wonder whether or not her daughter has screens.
Yeah.
At 11, we've watched it with so many of our friends, and their children, the earlier we introduce handheld devices to our children, the bigger the detrimental impact it has on them.
So that's anecdotally. I've actually got the evidence. There's some research out of a place in the States called the Sapiens Lab, and they've gone to a great big cohort of 18 to 24-year-olds. They've done a well-being test, mental health quotient, and they've just asked one question in there about screens. How old were you when you were first given your very own first handheld device? And they've found that there's this remarkably strong correlation, especially for girls. The younger she gets given that device, the greater the mental health challenges she experiences in her early 20s. So when you're dealing with an 11-year-old who's moving from a play-based childhood to a screen-based childhood, to use Jonathan Haidt's words, her relationships are changing. She's not getting as much physical activity.
Her body's
changing. She's probably not getting as much high-quality sleep because of the screens as well. I'm not saying that it's a screen thing. I'm saying this could be part of it. But all of those other factors are linked to screens. They also apply even if screens aren't the issue. So let me say them again. Quality of relationships at home and at school, physical activity, sleep, nutrition. The more food she eats that comes out of a packet, the worse it's going to be for her brain, inflammation in her body, and her psychology. So these are the things that I'd be looking at. Anna, if we had more info, we could be more precise. This is pretty general, but hopefully this gives you, and any other parent whose children are just driving them bonkers right now, a handful of things to play with. I love tricky questions. Thanks so much for asking. If you've got a tricky question, please send us an email, podcasts@happyfamilies.com.au with a voice note, and we'll do our best to answer your tricky questions. You can literally ask us anything, or we would love for you to visit our website. We've got this really simple to use solution online at happyfamilies.com.au. Just scroll down to podcasts, click the record button, and start talking. Tell us your big challenge. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Roulon from Bridge Media. If you'd like more information and resources to make your family happier, you'll find them at happyfamilies.com.au.